This segment of the Chopin podcast is brought to you by the Chopin Foundation of the United States, dedicated to promoting young American pianists and making Chopin's music accessible to all. One of the things that's unique about the Chopin competition is that, well, you're only allowed to play Chopin. This means, inevitably, pianist programs will overlap, and audiences will likely hear several performances of the same piece played by different competitors. This presents both a challenge and an opportunity to pianists who must distinguish their interpretations from others through the expressive choices they make in performance. Case in point, Martín García García, 2021 Chopin Competition bronze medalist who was also awarded the Concerto Prize. While he had picked the lesser-performed F minor concerto, it was the imaginative sound world and play of colors and voices that made his interpretation stand out. It was my pleasure to meet Martín on a video call where I played for him some of my favorite moments from his concerto and invited him to share his perspective on this special performance.
The music is too great. The music is too great. But it's actually quite funny. You know that you are playing this music and it's the first time I hear this recording. I never went back and listened to it. Most of the time I hate to listen to myself because I find myself very uncomfortable. Like, I don't know, I want to fix everything. That's my mentality always. I just keep working. I cannot sit back with my own recordings and enjoy most of the time. But you know, that day, that night, was probably one of the few times in my life in which it was such a special moment that I don't remember a thing. Literally, my brain cannot remember me stepping on the stage, looking at the people or playing. That's why also I don't like to see myself in the past. I just like to see myself in the present. Mm-hmm. And that happened. I was 100% in the moment. So much so that nothing remained in my brain after that.
So should I go ahead and stop the interview now and not play any more of this work?
See you, man.
Actually, what you're talking about speaks to how historically unusual or unnatural it is for us to capture music in sound, re-listen to it. For millennia, music was the ephemeral art form. It was the one that wouldn't last. It's such a young art form. And then the 20th century, probably we oversaturated, the world with recordings and thinking too much about music. So I really appreciate that for you, you're able to, in this day and age, actually have a moment of timelessness, of being in the moment and being present. And you can really feel it in your performance. There's no sense of, what will I sound like when I listen back to this? I don't feel that at all when you play.
Yeah, and that was actually a moment maybe of bliss, in that sense of a temporal moment. But unconsciously, you know that it's gone very soon, but you don't think about it. And that's why it was actually such a beautiful moment personally. And I also felt that way from the audience. I think from the first note. So this part that you played. Well, I challenge anyone who is listening to go online and find any recording, almost of any pianist. Maybe there is one or two that I missed, but in general, This recitativo, everyone plays extremely free. They don't really count 1, 2, 3, 4, basically. Everyone plays very freely. The way it's written, I thought about something completely opposite since the beginning, since the first time I approached this piece, which is when the recitativo comes, Chopin goes a long way to let you know how he wants the passage put together. And the only thing that keeps the passage together is time, is tempo. So the only thing that I could not allow myself to do is to actually modify that. So I modify everything else, but I don't modify tempo. He's like blurting out words, but blurting out in a very angry manner, like someone who is having an argument at home with I don't know, with someone that they love a lot, and that argument comes out in like spurting out the things, and then thinking about those things that you said, not in advance, but a posteriori. So that's a bit of the idea of these patches that I see, and permanently keeping the tempo. And that way, well, finally, we can be together with the contrabassi, and the conductor doesn't have to play, I don't know, like, what's the name in English? Malabaris, like doing juggling some oranges. The conductor is waiting for you and wondering. We should be all together. It should be comfortable to play. And I remember speaking with Maestro Borreco, and he's like, "But this is too easy." I'm like, "What? I want to make your life easier, Why not?" That's my policy.
And you know what? It's easy on the ears in a good way. And I'm glad you said this, because I noticed, and I'm not surprised if this really contributed to the jury picking you with this piece. There's a sense of cohesion that you understand your role in a larger piece, and you really play together a kind of large chamber vibe, and that has a lot to do with how you control your tempo. And I'm going to go straight to an example from the first movement, because a lot of people will get to a transitional passage in this piece and they'll say, "Oh, it's etude time," and they'll take off. And you do not do that. And it makes it so much better. It makes it more musical. This is just 1 minute, and I love this minute, because not only are we going to hear you not abuse your virtuosity, of course you could play fast if you wanted to. You keep a kind of sense of organic transition, but also the way you shape phrases, the way you create surprising, unexpected dialogue between left and right hand, just beautiful. And so here's one particular minute of many minutes that I really love.
I'm going to say something that might be a little bit controversial in the world of Chopin, because people tend to think of tempos in Chopin in a very blurry way, that they can be a little bit stretched or collapsed in a way. What I see in his entire output, actually, in his entire work from Opus 1 until his cello sonata, for example, I see that he tends to not change tempos, particularly in longer pieces of music, even in the ballades. I always see Chopin as a very methodical guy. He thought a lot about what he put on the score, even though he liked to improvise what he would put on the score. Took a long time. So someone who takes such a long time to write something down and doesn't write down tempo changes, that must mean something. So I rather go on that direction of keeping a cohesion, at least in tempo. I don't say that I won't change a little bit of tempo related to character. I see that every 4 bars, 2 bars, 4 bars, very small amounts of time, he changes something. He changes the lines. He changes what materials he uses, and I see it as a great loss for everyone to not indulge in each one of those lines. You know, in that passage where you said, for example, that everyone takes off. It's actually quite complex, and I don't see it complex in a way of it's so difficult. Let's play it faster, so it's gonna sound more virtuosic. I see it in the opposite way. It's more virtuosic if actually all the voices sound are brought up. My God, it's so beautifully written that I cannot go over it. I cannot take off. I just have to look at everything and enjoy everything, every single note.
I think there's a relationship, tell me if you agree, between steadiness, predictableness of pulse and tempo, and allowing voices to speak. You know, there's always some kind of chorale happening or inner line or texture. And you said indulge in precisely the way that most people don't use it in music, and I think it's the right way. You share what's special in actually what's written, rather than indulging in this personal take.
It's not about me.
Music.
That's for sure.
Exactly,
it's not about me.
But do you feel that relationship? Yeah.
Absolutely. You know what I see all through the history of music? That people don't think of the word rubato, which was always used as a musical term, was always a musical term. They don't think it about what the word rubato means, which is stealing. And if they think about rubato as stealing, they don't think it about morally stealing. Musicians should be morally stealing. We really do have to take from somewhere and give it somewhere else. Sometimes people forget about the second half, the corollary of the story, which is give it back somewhere, because that sense of stability is actually so important. It makes you comfortable. It makes the listener comfortable. That stealing and giving back. Another thing that I always think when I'm playing Chopin's music, I remember always Horowitz that liked to say, play Mozart as you play Chopin, and play Chopin as you would play Mozart. So we do not go on prefabricated ways on performing music, that we should play this freer because it's on the Romantic period, and we should play this much more steady and let's use the word stuck, like with Bach. I really do think that they are not so different in the way of approaching them. Bach is a very, 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 very romantic composer. We listen to his, Mass or his Passions. Extremely romantic music in the most human sense of the word. And Chopin, the most Baroque classical composer you could ever hear, the sensation of form, the sensation of polyphony.
Here, especially your dialogue, the playfulness of voices, right? The dancing and singing become sort of united, and they all sort of work together in a really, really fun way. Right there. Your left hand just like absurdly loud for a second, and then the right hand just answers it so beautifully. Listen to that. I love that.
You are showing this to me, and it's like it's not me playing. I don't remember this. I really don't remember this.
Well, that's because you're just in the middle of it. You're just inventing it on the spot. Why would you remember it? I mean, it was so in the moment.
Actually, probably this, I might have prepared it because I don't tend to improvise too much. Sometimes, yes, of course. But this kind of thing, I have the feeling that I prepared it, but I would be analyzing myself also. I am analyzing myself in the past. I really don't.
I don't want you to. Again, like I said, I'm sharing this with
actually quite funny
listeners, viewers, and just you're under no obligation to analyze yourself. This is
actually funny.
Okay, good. Okay, here's another moment. So your little left hand accent's coming up right here. Now, the way the left hand's going to reply in this following passage after this. Right there. Da-da-dum. I know I'm just pointing out what maybe to you are the most obvious things about this music, but I've heard so many performances of this, and
No, nothing is obvious. No, of course not.
people aren't sharing the left hand, right hand dialogue. You make it sound so transparent that it's like, why haven't I heard that? Why don't I hear this? Where does this come from in your training? Did you have mentors who showed you these things? Did you discover them yourselves? Was it from listening? I mean, all of the above. Like, where do you get your ideas? Because you make them sound so obvious in a good way. Like, I'm listening, I'm like, it's like the first time I'd heard the piece, but it also sounds like the only way it should be played.
Well, actually, it might come from many things. Like everything in life, it doesn't come from one specific thing. Probably, of course, my upbringing is very important. But my main mentor was Galina Gezarova for 8 years. I was with her. I was studying with her every single week of the year, practically, including Christmases. uh, Maybe 2, 3 classes a week. I was very involved, and she was really like my second mother, I could say. And she taught me basically how to look at the score, how to put everything in a hierarchical manner. And the hierarchy is never what you expect it to be. Basically, it's never the upper note is the most important and the lower note is the less important. To put it in a few words. So I always look at a score like you would look, I don't know, a polyphonic piece by Bach. I come back to it. You don't think about it in a single melody with some accompaniment in the back. Everything is a bit more complex than it seems. And when you put it apart and you look at each element, how it plays a role in the general phrase, for example, you find out that it's actually more of a dialogue between different parts of the score or of different voices or many more things that don't come up if you just look at everything, mostly from the Romantic period, as a melody and some accompaniment. It's also possible to look at it that way, but I actually never did look at it that way, and it's actually much more interesting. The second thing is that mostly I do not look at any recordings when I am working on a piece. I try to set myself, try to get away from any preconceptions that I might have from recordings. And of course, once I have a very clear idea of the piece itself, me and the piece or me and the composer, perhaps, then I actually start maybe listening to recordings because it gives me some freshness sometimes or some interesting ideas, perhaps. But the main body of work I do myself with the score, maybe some writings or I read things, but I tend to not listen to other people because I always feel like it's gonna taint or it's gonna make me want to copy someone, even though if it's someone like Zimmerman, I well, I would love to to just copy him everything. It's wonderful. Some of his recordings are too wonderful, but I don't think that's the point of music. Just follow exactly what someone else who is playing greatly.
Obviously, you won a medal at perhaps the biggest piano competition in the world, and at least the most visible. The most eyes are on this. And what did this bronze medal concerto prize? What did that experience mean for you? Afterward, I'm looking here at actually a picture of you in Miami. I'm partnering with Chopin Foundation, and you gave a
Yes.
performance at the salon there. This is one of, I'm sure, many opportunities that arose, after your experience in Warsaw. Just what has life been like the last few years for you?
I will put it in very blunt terms. Maybe before a Cleveland competition, which happened just a few months before Chopin competition. Before Cleveland competition, I could call myself more a student than anything else. That's how I saw myself too. And I approached music and life as a student. When I made the decision of going to all these piano competitions, I switched my brain and I started to think myself as a musician, no longer a student. I could say afterwards, I could call myself a pianist because I'm living from like the piano, which made a completely different approach to my life. Now, while I'm talking to you from Canada, from Vancouver, I don't stop traveling thanks to the Chopin competition. I have to say it's a very direct line from the Chopin competition to probably to what's gonna happen in the rest of my life. For good or for bad. And for me, I just choose to say that it's extremely good. I'm very grateful for what has happened. And well, that's one of the examples when I went to Miami, and that was probably one of the nicest experiences in front of an audience. Everyone was actually quite dedicated to listening, to shutting up, which is so. I'm so grateful when someone chooses to be in the utmost silence when they are listening. I am also extremely grateful because it takes energy, it takes effort, and that did happen in Miami actually. So, well, shout out to them. They were fantastic. Barbara also, shout out to her.
This episode is brought to you by the Chopin Foundation of the United States. Established by Lady Blanca Rosenstiel in 1977, the foundation has championed the music of Chopin and helped launch the careers of countless young American pianists for nearly a half-century. To support the Chopin Foundation, visit chopin.org/donate. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to my Patreon, where paying members have access to bonus scenes from my interview with Martín García García and other guests from throughout the series, and where you'll also get a discount on the new line of Chopin Podcast merch.